Welcome to Under the Fringe. We are your hosts, Andy Yablonsky and Julie Babin, two interior designers with almost 50 years of combined experience. And while we love design, our passion has really become helping the next generation of designers struggle less, earn more, and create more freedom in their lives. We offer a whole host of support options to help you create the structures you need to really thrive and grow. More to come on that at the end of the show. Hi.
Hello.
So good to see you again, as always.
Great to see you.
What are we talking about today?
Well, Andy, today we decided collectively that it would be great to dig into what are the day-to-day things that happen in your design company. Kind of nuts and bolts, because is it training the staff? Is it certain things that are affect your workflow? But a lot of it kind of gets a little bunched up day to day if these things aren't ironed out.
Yeah.
We wanted to go through common pain points and how do you get out in front of them so that they're not coming into your day to day. But it's very much, you have a big team, or even if you have a small team, these things kind of can eat up a lot of your time if they're not sorted out in advance.
So true. Yeah, it's so true. I was, when you said things could get a little bunched up, I was like, or like a pile up on the 405.
Yeah, like a major traffic jam.
Sometimes it's a major traffic jam and sometimes it's just irritating, but
yeah,
there's so many things that can trip you up. And I think this is a super important conversation because it affects your ability to effectively estimate your time. And if you're not accounting for these pain points because you haven't done something in your business to improve them, then you're losing money, right? And our last episode was, we're not in the business of losing money. So to continue that, we are not in the business of losing money. Having a way to correct, because sometimes I think it's easy to get caught up in the idea that this is just part of the design world, right? Like we spend all this time like moving something an inch and changing this thing to make it look better. And that's all part of design. And it's absolutely true. But it's the same concept behind something that we talked about, I think in episode 1 or 2, which was Bill Gates wears the same thing to work because he doesn't want to spend the mental energy to figure out what to wear, right? So he's got his khaki pants and his blue shirt and probably has 150 pairs of those same glasses that he could lose and not be affected by, because his time and energy are better spent on solving different problems. And so we want our problems to be better as well. So what's a typical day like, Julie? What's your estimation of what are the bumps?
Well, I definitely know that if the team doesn't have standards for things anywhere from how to record your time, how to record your hours, all the way through setting up a design presentation, creating a proposal for ordering furniture, and any type of drawings, like the whole drawing set or one drawing that the contractor needs. But I think those 4 buckets are where I do see teams getting tripped up.
Yeah.
And it is like, we're not in the business of losing money there, because all of a sudden, if you have to stop for the font isn't right, someone didn't dimension something properly, or you didn't price something correctly with the vendor because you didn't ask correctly up front, then it gets messed up on the client side pricing there. And anyway, those things really result in a lot of extra hours, not only for the person, like maybe the junior designer who's doing it, but then the senior person who's working with them. I mean, even if that's just 1 hour each, that's 2 extra hours that are essentially non-billable.
Yeah.
That could be an easy $300 right there. So those are the four main areas that I find people need the most training in.
Well, and I mean, I think when we worked at our bigger firms, like our billable hours were somewhere in the 80 to 90% of our time. And so if you are a 40-hour work week, that's 32 hours. No, sorry, 36 hours of time that is expected to be billable. And if I was doing a drawing, let's say, and that company had standards, and I wasn't using the standards, after I completed the drawing, I had to go back and like update all the line weights to make sure that everything was correct and import a title block and then fill it out. And I think there's something about doing these things in a sequence that is in fact time saving. And I think the more that those habits are created, the more creativity and flexibility we have in the actual design versus
Exactly.
spending that time on things that are like, it's the minutia of it all that's just such a drag, right? It's my least favorite thing. I hate wasting time.
Yeah. And I think it comes at the expense of, oh, I'm busy, I can't do it now. So I think what we're encouraging you guys is to commit to creating time up front to
Yep.
set these things up. Like, what is the font that you always use on emails, every single document, every drawing? Like, commit to each of those specific things. The font, where does the logo go? How does the spreadsheet look? How do you price things with vendors? Just all these, the drawings is a big one, line weights. Decide up front and spend that time up front because it will be a huge savings in the end.
Well, I think we both consulted in an office a few years ago, business coaching. And one of the things that they did there, which I really appreciated, was they were using Studio Webware. And for anyone that's using Studio Webware, documenting your time there can be a real pain in the patoot. And so they did a weekly breakdown in the comments and then just put in how many hours they spent on the project during the week. So there was no, I think a lot of us have been trained to bill to the quarter hour, which in theory is really nice, but I don't know, unless I'm writing an email, when I've ever spent actually 15 minutes on anything in design, right? It takes much, much longer. And so, and again, this is where that time blocking system comes in. So if I were to block out time for emails, I know that if I spent an hour doing emails, I could bill each one of my clients for 15 minutes. Assuming I had 4, maybe I have more than that. Maybe the emails only took 5 minutes. I don't know. Like, I think, but understanding that like I'm spending my time in this hour writing emails is way more efficient than me writing one email, starting a drawing, getting a phone call, coming back to that email, right? There's like all these interruptions that could go on. So if I just say, well, I'm going to spend this 1 hour emailing and I'm writing, I'm in the flow of writing, right? I'm in the flow of conversation. I'm calling vendors to get pricing or whatever. And obviously, your assistants can be doing all of that, but it's the same kind of flow for them that it is for us. We want people to be efficient and in the mode of doing one thing over and over again until it's time to change. I mean, one of the things I love about this job is how diverse it is. Like I could be
Me too.
one day or 1 hour, working on a proposal the following hour, and then going to a new client meeting, right? Like that could be one day of my week. But so it's not like when I'm saying you want to be doing these things over and over again, that you're stuck 8 hours a day doing the same thing, but consolidating those tasks is so much more efficient for your brain and your time and like the way that you shift between tasks, because that takes some time too. And so it's definitely a thoughtful way. It's designing the day, right? We keep talking about design the life. Well, we want to design the day also. And part of that includes how these standards affect our ability to have more creativity or less creativity. And all that's based on time, which is the one thing we don't have enough of.
So it's like time blocking.
time blocking for sure. Understanding what I mean, I like to do it so like today is a Friday. I would do, even though this is coming out on a Tuesday, where we're recording on a Friday, I like to look at my whole week on the Friday and just pencil in everything and estimate how much time it's going to take me based on the estimates that I already have. So I'm always looking at how many hours did I say this was going to take? How many hours have I already spent? And how many do I have left to continue working on the project, right? Those are the things that I want to do at a project management level so that I understand my bottom line. I don't want to go over those hours. And if I am really good at what I'm doing, I would like to come way under so that I'm making more money, right? That's the goal. More time, more money. So that's why I think time blocking is such a genius thing, because you are managing the project and then you're keeping track of your time and you're like, oh, I spent an extra half an hour. Fine, that's great. But it does keep you on track for not spending 6 extra hours, right? I think it's really easy to go over. You get lost in the moment of doing something and you're not really paying attention, and or you just aren't giving yourself enough time to
I think that's pretty common.
Thoughtfully sit down. So I think, but looking at your project management numbers and understanding like how much time have you already spent on the project and how much do you have left to spend on the project. And I think again, we all understand that most of our time is spent at the beginning of the project, right?
The heavy lifting is very much in the schematic design and design development pricing stages, which as a whole of the process, like from start to finish, with the contractor finishing and everyone involved, so the space is complete, the design, our hours is in the first 30% of the process. 70% of the process is someone making something for you, building something. So our hours are very much front loaded. Of course, we have to maintain the process, but those hours drop down significantly.
Yep. And I think, if we're not preparing our clients, if you have a time billing schedule that is hourly and you're not preparing your client, that 70% of the project is going to be done in the first 30% of the project. 70% of the billing, sorry, is going to be done in the first 30% of the project. Then you might have a really shocked client on your hands because they maybe got an estimate from you, but we're expecting that to be sort of equally spaced out. And if that's not how you bill, helping your client understand that they're going to maybe get a $15,000 bill in the first 2 months, and then it's going to taper off to 4 every month thereafter, which, however that works. But that's not a terrible proportion, right? If you're doing a big house and you're kind of working on a bunch of stuff, you're pushing a lot through. And so that as you wind things down, obviously your hours would start to get smaller, as Julie said. So that's, we're talking a lot about the pain points of a day-to-day, because the day-to-day, it's so easy to change the day-to-day. We have the opportunity to really shift things around. So what I love about the design process is that if you were to implement something different, it might take a couple of days to onboard that process, but then you have the rest of your career to sharpen it up and make it really fantastic, versus trying to operate in a state of disorganization is really challenging.
Yeah, because I think the disorganization is probably going to zap your energy, bring all, I know for me, it makes me feel very frustrated when things aren't like, it's just the font isn't right, and the design sheet isn't right, and the line weight on the drawing, and I just get really heavy energy and very frustrated. And so like, if that didn't happen, then I would have all this energy to focus on being inspired and thinking about the design problems that I need to solve, and creatively connecting with the process in a very different way. And so that would be a very different day, right? Like, because I go from one day I feel kind of zapped and frustrated, and a different day I'm feeling enlightened. And I think for me, and I'm sure most people are like this, like I get a lot more really good ideas when when my mood and my energy is up.
100%. We talked about that,
Um,
about being in the flow, right? That
yeah.
being in the flow allows everything to happen more magically. And so I was just sort of looking at our notes here. So you're going to lose money if you're not paying attention to how many hours you're actually working on stuff, right? So you want to be very cognizant of that. And the other place that you could lose money is, let's say, I know it was incredibly hard for me, like so much so that I switched to flat fee billing, but to record my time on a regular basis. And
Uh-huh.
I would go back at the end of the month and it would take at least 2 hours. Whereas if I had spent time blocking, I would already have it all written down. And if I needed to make adjustments, I could.
Oh, interesting.
And or if I had just spent time at the end of every day, but there was something about it, like the resistance was so powerful for me that I just wouldn't do it. And then I would have to just sit back, and thankfully I have a really great memory, but that's not how I want to spend my time anymore.
And also, because we've already talked about this, but also the amount of time, like not only are you not enjoying that you have to go back and think about it, but you also maybe avoided that for a few weeks.
Yes.
You maybe
Yes.
avoided it for a few weeks, and it's this like dull pain that you could sort of ignore, but it's there and it's weighing on you.
Yeah. And then what happens is the billing gets delayed because I have to spend time thinking about what I did, and then the invoices don't go out on time. And then I don't have money coming in, right? So it's just
and now you have problems.
So, I mean, for me personally, the switch to the flat fee has been a huge game changer. It's transformed everything in my business, really. And so I don't have that resistance around billing anymore because it's so straightforward. And now my cash flow problems are gone.
Mhm.
And my workflow is better. So there's all these advantages to really and I think sometimes as creative people, we think, oh, the creativity is just going to strike us, right? We'll be ready
Mhm.
for it.
Yeah.
Be in the mood. I can tell you as a painter that that's not how it works.
You kind of have to cultivate it, like get yourself in the mood.
It's a practice. Like you just have to do it. So the more I paint, the better my paintings get. And the more I paint, the more creativity I feel. And sometimes, just to be honest, like it's not great. Like it's not, there are many moments where I feel blocked and frustrated, and I still have to paint because that's the contract I have with myself. And so it's similar to design. Like I might not want to be doing everything that I have blocked out time for, but if I don't hit that schedule and I negotiate around my calendar with myself, things really fall through the cracks. And so I think that it's not forcing the creativity as much as it is creating a consistent habit that my brain starts to expect that when I see design work on my calendar, I'm going to do it.
And to me, it reminds me of days of the week, because also, like Andy was saying, this company that we were consulting at a few years ago, several years back, we had days of the week. So, what day of the week the team, the appropriate team members, like the designer on the project, the purchasing agent, maybe a support staff, would purchase things on Tuesdays. So that was the day, because I don't know about you guys, but I know for me as a designer, let's say the client just paid for something and now it's Tuesday, so we're buying everything on a set day of the week. And that helped me because you got to like, oh, well, the upholstery guy takes a 50% check. But CB2 is an online website that is a shopping cart, and I need the credit card for that. And then this other guy needs a drawing. And so each vendor, there was like a lot of work that kind of went into making sure the order was complete. And the fact that it was on a Tuesday, that was a devoted block of time. Like I would devote Tuesday mornings to making sure all the purchase orders were correct so that they could go and fire off the payments. Or Thursdays we did tracking. So everything that's, you know, like you said, in Studio Webware, or if you use Ivy or House or whatever your purchasing software is, well, these are all my active purchase orders, like for all my clients, and you pull those reports. And then there's that one day of the week. And again, that was usually a junior staff person who was updating the tracking, but they would always do it on Thursday. Yep. And again, that's the time blocking thing. I know the temptation is I could track the rug, on Friday, and then I could track the custom upholstery with the guy on Monday, and then I could do this on a Wednesday. If you do that, your time is very spread very thin. And the other thing that you were saying with like blocks of time is also when I devote a block of time, I feel like I can think about it all the way. Like I think about each of the details. Well, actually, there is a welt. Okay, the sofa has a welt. Okay, this is a sectional sofa. It's custom. So I need to make sure that he includes the hardware that makes the pieces stick together. And so you're really thinking about that piece in its entirety. Or like, for me, it's always like tile. Anytime there's tile, I'm always like, you can't forget the grout color. And really thinking about that. Or sometimes we've had some projects where we've ordered custom grout. Some of our commercial projects, like coffee shops, we've had a lot of fun, and we ordered grout that has like glitter in it. And so we had to order it in advance because it was 4 weeks out, and it's just not just a regular grout. But if you do blocks of time, you really, for me personally, and I hope that other people feel this way too, I think through the piece. So that if there's a lamp, where is it getting plugged in? Do I have the right bulbs? Mm-hmm. Is the bulb coming with the lamp? Mm-hmm. Or is it not? And I need to add it to my list of bulbs to buy. And so if I give myself that time, and then like you said, with flat fees, you're much more efficient that way. You're actually making a lot more money.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, one of the things we were also chatting about was when you're sort of like a butterfly flitting to each different flower, and there's not a lot of consistency. Like that's the butterfly's only job, is to pollinate.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not our only job. And so what happens when there are these moments of like, and again, I have ADD, so it's a little, I do tend to, my natural inclination is to like squirrel, right? All over the place. And that's why I have these practices, because it really helps me focus. But if I am distracted or distractible, it's often leads to these moments where something drops. Like I don't fully finish out the thought I had, and then that thought just goes away. And then the contractor doesn't have maybe the full plumbing schedule, or right. Like there are certainly things where there could be mistakes that are made because, and it's not just because I have ADD, like this could happen to anybody. Right. So it is, or you're falling behind because then you have to go back and double check. Like, did I do that right? Is it correct? And so, and that takes an extra hour instead of in the moment when I could have done it when I was doing all the other checking. And so those are.
And what do you think, Andy, though? Because I also want to make sure, like when you say that you have this mindset, or your mental ability is to be able to jump from different things. And so how do you also balance the fact that, because that could be one of your zones of genius, that you can focus on this project and then it makes you think about this other thing over here, and then it makes you think about a painting that you want to do. And what if that's also part of your superpower, So I wonder if there's a way to also, encourage and validate if that's a natural part of you versus, oh,
Sure.
it's negative.
I mean, I think for me, so you're absolutely right. That is a superpower, because I do have the ability to quickly move from thing to thing and then
Yeah. I
redirect
think your
myself
brain
back.
like gets triggered by this thing I'm working on and that makes me think of this thing over here. And so how do you also harness that? Because that could also be a good thing.
I think that happens. So I'm just thinking about like the different tasks that wouldn't happen for me if I was doing a drawing. I'm actually pretty focused when I'm drawing,
Mhm.
because I'm following the design and the details and, drawing something and then looking at it and making sure that that's how I want it to actually be. And so I can get caught up in the minutia. My brain really enjoys that process. So that one I just have to keep time because I could get lost.
Yeah.
But where the different sort of flitting like that butterfly happens is when I'm looking for things, like when I'm sourcing, right? So I do have the
Yeah.
ability to source like multiple things at one time for multiple projects.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that is, maybe that's not everyone's superpower or ability. Um, and if it's not, that's completely fine. But if I'm designing for that week and I'm working on several projects, I usually give myself a list and then it's like a treasure hunt basically. But I'll have three. I tend to like Photoshop, although we've been starting to Julie's been using it more. But there's a new program called Mural
Hmm.
where you can post images. And so I have in the past, like Pinterest has been my best friend, and then I
Yeah.
those images and I curate them in Photoshop. Um,
Right.
and now it's starting to happen more in Mural where I can take those, especially on Zoom. I think that that's a really great tool,
Uh-huh.
because you can share. And then you said you can actually have a conference call through that program. So
Right.
to learn, I'm not being paid by Mural. I just like promoting things that work for us. So,
Yeah.
but if I am working like that, I'll have three separate files open so
Hmm.
that I can dump what I'm finding into each project. Because sometimes, like, I'll want to pin that thing because I want to be able to find it later, but I'm also in the midst of putting together a scheme. And so I want to see what it really looks like in the moment versus like having to go back to my Pinterest board. And
Yeah.
so I like putting those things together on the fly working, and that just happens like I give myself 3 or 4 hours to work on design, and it could
Yeah.
be 3 or 4 projects at a time. So
Mm.
but I group it. um if I'm searching for plumbing fixtures, I'm going to search
Mm.
for all the plumbing fixtures for all the projects at one time.
Yeah.
um Even if there are different finishes, right? Because I know
Yeah.
as I'm coming across everything, I don't want to return to this page. I want to be able to leave and come back. Um, Maybe I need the spec sheet or something like that, but I want to be
Yep.
able to, round up everything in one go. Uh,
Right.
and similarly, like if I'm doing living rooms, bedrooms, whatever it
Yeah,
is,
I was gonna
like
say
it's
if you
all
have
the
multiple
stuff.
rooms, think, oh, this room you want black, this room you
Yep.
want brass, and kind of start to pull them at the same time. I do that too.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like most designers have that capability.
Yeah.
As we're looking, but and I know that when you're starting out too, it's a little bit harder to like right now I'm working on a Mediterranean house and then a transitional house, and those do have a very different vibe from each other.
Yeah. So it
And
might be hard to shop for them at the same. Sometimes you can shop for those things at the same time, but sometimes it's hard.
yeah, I think but I think it like in the back of my mind, I just always plant the seed that there are these other things that I'm looking for. So if I happen to be looking for side tables for a living
Mm.
room and I come across something that would work well in a bedroom, I'm going to pin it to that other project, right? Like I'm not
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
so focused. Um, and I think similarly, like when I'm doing materials presentations, I'll get out all the tile and I will work on multiple projects at one time.
Yeah. Yeah. I do that too. I think because thinking about something specific gives me something to react to. Like, I love it, I hate it.
Yeah.
And that makes me think about what I want the other projects to also include. Not everything on some other project, but it'll make my brain go, oh, I want to remember da 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 for that living room.
Yeah. So
So
I
I do
think
think there's aspects of that that are efficient. I think we both learned to like spend a bunch of time, like 4 hours gathering, whether you're shopping at fabric showrooms, shopping at stone and tile showrooms, and bringing it all together, or just shopping on Pinterest. I do a lot of that. Um, but that's like a block of time, and meaning I'm not editing everything in that moment. I'm not like it's this exact thing for this. I'll do that as a separate. I call that editing.
Yep. I
As a
mean, I
separate
will
time.
sometimes, but I think usually that happens for me when I've already done one round of like
Yeah.
compilation and then I'm going back through and doing more sourcing, and I like to see it all together. But yeah, but I think that it is efficient to work on more than one project at a time. I can't work on more than one
Yeah.
drawing at a time usually, but I can certainly like source either a
I think
material,
for sourcing, yeah, like
yeah,
fabrics,
or for like
stuff, tables, furniture,
even appliances.
tile, stone,
Yeah. I've got
paint.
two kitchens at the moment, and I just sourced all the appliances for those.
Yeah, like the hardware, the lights, if you're doing sconces for a bunch of different bathrooms.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just
Um,
easier to look for a thing and whether it applies to this project, that project, or that, maybe it's just a scones I like that. I put that in the file too. So um
and
those are
I think dovetailing this stuff in with having a junior design staff is also great to use certain words, like what you're actually doing. Like we call sourcing, is like going out and finding stuff, like you're a hunter and a gatherer, you're sourcing fabrics. That means that you're going to find it. Because a lot of this stuff is managing like myself as the lead designer, but also if I have a junior person who is less experienced, I would really encourage everyone to use the same words over and over so they know what you mean. Like, I think, we say sourcing, but someone who is new to the industry, they might not know what that is. Like, I've had a junior person where she'll just show us, like, we'll say, get some options for this drapery.
yeah.
And she'll get like one option. And we're like, no. We need like 10 options for
Yeah.
everything. Like you get to the yes by having a bunch of no's.
Yeah.
And so we're encouraging the junior staff to understand like pulling. I would use words like pulling, sourcing. I think those are things that have to do, or shopping. I sometimes call it that, but I worked with someone who didn't like that word. But sourcing is usually, and so use these consistent words with your team. Also, like a proposal is something that you create in your purchasing software that the client gets so that they can pay for furniture or tile or plumbing or whatever you're selling to your client, lights, hardware, the things that you're going to buy for your client. I call that a proposal so that the client gets the proposal, they can pay for it. Or I call it like design sheets. If I'm showing the client a bunch of stuff, like here's this one room, here's everything together, or this one scheme, and then here's scheme number 2 on a different page. I call those design sheets.
Yep.
Or it's a design presentation, but use these words, like call it something and repeat it, because I've noticed a lot of lost time and the team just like, what do you mean design sheets? And it's like the thing that we use for everything. Again, and like, because it's really just a few things that you're doing over and over and over.
Right. Well, I think the vocabulary in our business sometimes is a little not user friendly. Like there's so many terms that are created. And so I remember learning the vocabulary, and we actually have a vocabulary list in the manual because it's such it's such an important part. It's
It'll
certainly
save a lot of time.
medical jargon, but there is something about it that is so specific to the industry that I think when
Right.
you start saying things like COM and
Yeah.
um welt and fringe, there's all these terms that somebody's like, well, that's like a wound, right? Nope.
And like contrast welt, like this
Right.
just happened where we
Yeah.
said welt. Well, there's two colors. There was the color of the welt and the color of the upholstered body.
Yeah.
And so the guy just gave us one yardage. And I was like, but there's two different things that we're buying here. This number should be broken out.
Yeah.
And so just the word contrast was like, something that I had to train on.
Illuminating. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that I mean, we harp about this a lot. I think this is a thing that we are pretty passionate about. I'm not gonna lie. It's the it's the
Yeah.
efficiencies in the business. It's making more money, it's making more time, it's making sure that things are running as smoothly as they can. And all
Yeah.
of this comes down to a level of communication with your team, with yourself, with your clients, with your bookkeeper. Like it is a circular piece that has to have that radiates these it's like a pond, a ripple in a pond, right? So like if your
Yeah.
communication is really clear, less
Mhm.
ripples, less effect
Yeah.
of other people, negative effect of other people, and really positive effects in your business and within your organization. So we were talking about this. I had an incident where a contractor just didn't communicate in a timely manner, and the timely manner was they couldn't start the project until it was a month after the start date they had supplied and we had requested. And in the meantime, my client didn't know that. I didn't know that. And
Mhm.
she emptied out her entire kitchen. And then they were like, yeah, we can't start for a month. And I was like, oh yeah.
No.
That is the worst because somebody has spent their time getting ready for your preparation, and your lack of communication created this large problem.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments where I was like, I don't think I could work with this contractor again because it's just not it's not a good fit. Like I require better communication than that. And it seemed unfathomable to me that they wouldn't have known much earlier in their schedule that they
Mhm.
wouldn't be starting then, and they waited until honestly the last minute. So it was just a really
And that's a huge loss for that construction company. That could also happen to a designer. If they didn't communicate, this is why we talk about schedules. And we
yeah,
were talking earlier, the schedule of your project is also based on completing the phase of the
right.
project. So are you in schematic? Are you in design development? Are you in pricing and documentation? Or are you in construction administration?
Yeah.
And back to what you were saying earlier about like the bills going to the client, you tell them up front, especially if you work with like the systems that we've created in our manual, the contracts give it to you up front so the client knows, oh, when we finish schematic design,
Yep.
my next payment is due because they're starting design development. And so they'll have that. You've talked about that a lot, where the client has the check ready for you at that presentation because they understand, because it's so easy, you communicate this stuff up front, you save yourself hours and hours, but
Ow.
also emotion. Like when things get emotional with a client, if they're upset
Yeah.
or you're upset or anything that's that's energy, that's energetics, emotion, is a real downer.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to just prevent from, we're all about preventative. It's kind of like being
Yeah.
healthy, prevent your prevent your business from getting sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
These key like ways of communicating, it's really just having a schedule. It's pretty simple. And then you start to complete your work too. That gives the team internally these deadlines.
Yeah. I think the framework is really important. And I think that the way that the framework is used is equally as important. And so but if you don't have a framework, it makes it really challenging. Because I guarantee you'll start missing things. And the bigger that your company gets and the more And I mean,
It
let's,
just starts to get really out of whack.
well, it gets out of whack, but I also think there's this design is one of these creatures where you don't, I personally feel like I will never know all there is to know about design. There's more to learn
Of
every
course
single
not.
time
Yeah.
I do something. There's a new product, there's a new way of doing things, there's a new building code, there's a new restriction somewhere, right? So the learning curve is so steep. And again, we talk about this a lot because I think that losses in a company are common, but they don't have to be. And so
Mhm.
I I want to see people succeeding on a grander scale. And a lot of that is slowing down so that you have the framework, you've got everything going on. And so as your projects get
Yeah.
bigger, your capacity to grow is actually supported.
Yeah.
And that it's, I mean, sometimes I think this podcast is like we say the same things over and over again, but they're so, so important. Um,
Well,
and
because ultimately
they
with
apply to
business,
everything.
yeah, exactly.
They
And
apply to
if
everything.
you're and the reason why is because we're talking about being in business. Of course, we're talking about like the ways to behave as a designer, but what's above that is being in business, right? Like that's the umbrella, is this is a business, you're a business person. And as business people, because designers are kind of more in the category of like artists, which is everything's different and you never duplicate, you never repeat. You're kind of in this like reinventing the wheel creative process, but a business leverages things that it can repeat, and that's what scale is. And so I know it's confusing because if we were selling an object, if we were selling a table, we would be talking about like, okay, how can we duplicate the table? How can we increase our sales volume? So it's
Sure.
hard when it's a service. But we're trying to show you guys ways of leveraging your ability to serve.
Yeah.
And when you leverage, that means that the business is becoming more profitable. You're spending less time. You're able to have perhaps more fun.
Yeah.
More vacation, certainly.
Yes. All of the above. That was so
Yeah.
Julie. Because it's true. That's the thing that ultimately it comes down to, is you're leveraging your time, you're leveraging these processes so that the service is smooth. And then you're getting the repeat clients, you're getting the referrals from the contractors, you're getting referrals from showroom people. Like that
Yeah.
happens. I get a lot of referrals from my salespeople because they know that I'm a competent designer. They like how I send in my purchase orders. They understand that
Yeah.
I know how to run my business, and they feel like if they were to refer me, that the person who I would be serving would be in good hands. And that
Yep.
makes me feel great because I know that that's true. Um, and I know that it's an important part of building my business. So I think on that note, we want you all to have that experience of getting referrals, getting repeat clients, all because people feel well taken care of, and getting great staff. If you have great staff, they're going to stick around
Yeah.
because you have great processes and procedures. That
Yep.
framework is really it. I mean, it's the foundation of your business
Yeah.
because if these things aren't put in place properly, like the room for mistakes is great, and then the room for losses is exponential. So
Right. And all of that sort of packaged under the category of your reputation. So you want to have reputation. I love that you said like showrooms, because I've
yeah.
certainly had referrals
Yep.
from showrooms to new clients.
Yep.
You're right. If you have a good reputation, that's going to attract staff. And of course, good reputation will, of course, attract good clients.
Yep.
So it's all about your reputation. And then you don't need to be, you can sort of be your best self. with these systems in place, because you can rely on the system, and you can, like, it's like a system is really just like what we're saying is like upgrade your machinery. Like if you're talking about a car or something that requires a mechanical, like a physical mechanics, you would say, oh, well, this engine is great in this new car, so I feel safe. And so it's really the same thing as that, even though it's just like in our mind and in like physical tools that we've created and outlined for you guys if you're interested. But just think of it as a piece of machinery. Like, oh, I'm going to upgrade my computer.
I love the car analogy, because in some ways, like if you are the engine of your business, but you don't have the right tires on your car, like you can't go very far, even if you have a high performance engine. And so this is like having the right tires, right? Like you're the creative engine and you've got all the energy, you've got, you know, all of these things to make a business work. But if you're driving around on those like donut tires and you've got 4 of them, you can only go so fast. And so this is faster, farther. But it's slowing down to get there. Like it's sort of that pit stop, the crew pit comes out and they like put on new tires, and all of a sudden your race car is a real race car again. And so we'd love to see you all out at the track, zooming around at high speeds, performing at your best. And everybody has the ability to get there. It's just a matter of sitting down with yourself and making sure that you have really great things in place. And if you don't want to do it on your own, I think sometimes I was literally in my kitchen this morning measuring for doors for this bookshelf, because I was like, I'd really like to turn this into a cabinet and make storage, right? I'm a creator. I love to create. I think, you know, we're all creative, but again, at the end of the day, how many things are you capable of creating? Unlimited, right? You're unlimited creativity, but how many things are you actually able to execute on? I think those are the important questions to ask. And so limiting the number of things that you are investing in is important. And because we don't have infinite time. And so
prioritizing.
I think prioritizing this is a no-brainer.
Yes, exactly. And I always feel like it's sort of equivalent to talking about like good bras and underwear. You're kind of like, yeah, I mean, okay, fine, I'll talk about it. I might not want to talk about it. But when you put on the dress and you've got an amazing foundation, you know, you've got the right slip and you've got what are the things that really suck it all together?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks.
A good bra. I mean, that dress looks like bada bing, bada bang. I mean, you can tell when people
it's not the dress.
Look at you and the girls are in the right place. You're like, oh yeah, I'm going out on the town tonight.
Yes.
So it's very much the same thing. Like those undergarments. I hate shopping for those undergarments. I hate going and finding them and all this stuff, but I know that I kind of can't go out of the house without them.
Yeah. So here's to good bras and good systems.
A good bra for your business.
A good bra for your business. I love it. All right, ladies and gents, whoever's listening today, we appreciate your time and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening and being part of our community. Speaking of community, please head over to our website and sign up for podcast alerts and blog posts. And if you're looking for more resources to up-level your business, create more time in your schedule, and improve your profits, we have a blueprint for your success that covers mindset, systems, business, teams, and tools. Think of us as your unaccredited university. Visit us at under-the-fringe.com and tune in next week for our next deep dive on creating more freedom and less struggle.